In a display of royal charm gone wrong, the second prince attempted to captivate Shi Qingluo, only to find himself completely outmaneuvered by her blunt and unbothered demeanor, leaving him utterly speechless. As the conversation shifted to mundane comforts like winter clothing, Shi Qingluo effortlessly charmed Zai Rong and the gathered noble youths with promises of warm, knitted garments, further alienating the prince from her inner circle. With the promise of unique winter fashion, Shi Qingluo solidified her bond with the capital's young elites, leaving the ambitious prince to watch from the sidelines, struggling to understand why his royal status held so little weight. Leaving the temple, Zai Rong warned Shi Qingluo of the second prince's reputation as a heartless scoundrel who toyed with noble ladies, confirming that her instinct to keep him at a distance was entirely correct. The second prince's frustration grew as he realized his usual tactics of seduction and strategic influence had failed to capture the interest of the very people he aimed to recruit into his political web. Far from the streets, the Crown Prince Liang Hengqian observed the situation through his cousin Mo Qingling, finding amusement in his brother's failed schemes and expressing a keen interest in meeting the elusive, intelligent couple. With a cold smile, the Crown Prince acknowledged that while he might not sway the couple, he deeply admired the sharpness of those who refused to be mere pawns in the royal power struggle. The emperor confronted Xiao Yuanqi with proof of the assassination attempt on Xiao Hanzheng, leaving the general trembling as he scrambled to shift the blame onto his brother-in-law. Caught in a web of his own making, Xiao Yuanqi confessed to his past family failures, attempting to pivot the narrative into a tale of regret while desperately trying to keep his own status intact. The emperor saw through the general's theatrics, sensing the selfishness beneath the facade of a repentant father, yet choosing to use the moment to squeeze political leverage out of Xiao Yuanqi. Forced to handle the punishment of his own kin, Xiao Yuanqi felt his power slipping away, realizing that his son Xiao Hanzheng and daughter-in-law Shi Qingluo had become the unexpected architects of his ruin. Safe within the sanctuary of their home, Shi Qingluo and Xiao Hanzheng exchanged romantic banter, their bond strengthening as they dismissed the outside world of political intrigue. The conversation turned somber as Xiao Hanzheng revealed the tragic, toxic cycle of the third prince and his manipulative consort, a cautionary tale that reinforced their decision to retreat from the capital's schemes. Realizing that these royal figures were incomparable to the genuine love and intellect they shared, the couple reaffirmed their commitment to return home, far from the reach of the imperial court. With eyes wide open to the dangers of the capital, Shi Qingluo and Xiao Hanzheng resolved to enjoy their remaining time before making a clean break from the toxic environment of the princes. Despite his persistence, Shi Qingluo continued to keep the second prince at bay, once again rejecting his invitations in the middle of a crowded street, leaving the royal brothers baffled by her defiance. Unbeknownst to them, the third imperial consort Fu Wenzheng watched from above, her heart turning black with envy as she decided to target the woman she perceived as a rival for the prince's attention. The inevitable confrontation occurred at an embroidery shop, where the arrogant Fu Wenzheng attempted to assert her dominance by demanding Shi Qingluo's chosen goods, setting the stage for a clash of wills. In the heart of the capital, a clash of status unfolds. The arrogant Fu Wenzheng uses her royal consort title to belittle the humble Shi Qingluo, hoping to provoke a reaction. Yet Shi Qingluo remains composed, choosing to retreat rather than engage in a losing battle of influence, leaving the consort unsatisfied and seething with a dark, vengeful intent. The shadows of the capital hide dark plots. Fu Wenzheng, driven by spite, dispatches henchmen to destroy Shi Qingluo's reputation. But the ambush fails spectacularly when Shi Qingluo turns the tables, effortlessly subduing the would-be attackers with lethal precision and a chilling, predatory smile. Terror grips the hired thugs as they realize they have underestimated their mark. Under the cold edge of a blade, the truth spills out, a plot orchestrated by a servant girl for the third prince's consort. With the culprit unmasked, Shi Qingluo realizes that a simple apology will no longer suffice. The grievance has become too immense to ignore. Instead of seeking revenge in the shadows, Shi Qingluo forces her captors to march toward the capital magistrate's office. She crafts a narrative of conscience and public duty, turning the failed assassins into reluctant witnesses to expose the cruelty of those who seek to silence the provider of the nation's new seeds. The capital magistrate finds himself caught in a web of political intrigue. Facing the tearful, soft-spoken Shi Qingluo and the trio of confessing ruffians, he realizes the implications of this case. The path leads straight to the doorstep of the imperial family, a headache that no official desires, yet one that cannot be ignored. Seeking an ally, Shi Qingluo turns to Zai Rong. Upon hearing of the vicious attempt to destroy her, Zai Rong is filled with righteous fury, ready to challenge the status quo. The air in the mansion crackles with the weight of their decision. It is time to take the battle directly to the source of power. With the strategy set, the two women embark on a dangerous path. They are not merely seeking justice, they are aiming for the emperor himself. Shi Qingluo understands that in a world governed by rank, the only way to topple a consort is to appeal to the one person who sits above them all, her father-in-law. As their carriage rolls toward the palace, the capital buzzes with the news of the scandal. Every influential family in the city watches with bated breath, realizing that Shi Qingluo is no ordinary scholar's wife. She has chosen a path of confrontation that will surely shake the very foundations of the nobility. News reaches the princes, and with it, a realization of the stupidity of the consort's actions. Liang Hengxiao finds himself disgusted by the potential fallout. A desperate, power-hungry consort has not only threatened the empire's favor, but has also inadvertently turned a valuable asset into a dangerous enemy. The princes recognize that their own reputations are being dragged into the mud by the consort's petty, cruel games. They question if Shi Qingluo is truly naive enough to think she can win, or if they have underestimated her cunning. The atmosphere of the capital is charged with uncertainty, waiting for the emperor's reaction. As the palace gates open, the stage is set for a clash that will redefine power dynamics. Shi Qingluo is prepared to bet her future on a gamble that goes beyond mere complaining. She is ready to offer something so valuable that even the emperor cannot ignore her demands, proving that a scholar's wife can wield more influence than an imperial consort. Throughout the capital, the echoes of the injustice ripple outward. The young master Zai Rui, fiercely loyal and impulsive, refuses to stand by while his friend is targeted. He storms toward the palace, his defiance a testament to the growing support that Shi Qingluo has unknowingly gathered among the capital's youth. The influence of the incident spreads to the Liang family, where Liang Yaoxiao clashes with his father over the necessity of intervention. The generational divide is clear. One sees political caution, the other sees an unshakable moral obligation to support a friend in the face of royal bullying. Meanwhile, Xiao Hanzheng returns, his calm facade masking a burning desire for retribution. He wastes no time, moving to enlist the support of a respected, upright official. The board is being set, the pawns are moving, and tomorrow's court will see the beginning of a storm that the third consort cannot survive. The solidarity grows as even the elders of the great houses begin to see the value in such loyalty. Liang Yaoxiao leaves the mansion with his grandfather's blessing, ready to strike at the consort's reputation. The protection the consort once enjoyed is dissolving, leaving her vulnerable to the public outcry gathering against her. Inside the administrative hall, the tension is palpable. The emperor, prepared to manage a petty grievance, is stunned by the magnitude of what Shi Qingluo offers. She has not come to beg. She has come to provide the means for national strength, hitting the exact pressure point that a visionary ruler cannot refuse. With a single recipe, the dynamic shifts. The emperor sees not a village woman, but a strategic asset, while Shi Qingluo expertly leverages her value to ensure her own protection. The trap is laid, the pieces are aligned, and the third consort's fate is effectively sealed by the very person she tried to destroy. Inside the heart of the palace, the atmosphere crackled with tension as Shi Qingluo presented a secret iron-smelting formula, a document that promised to reshape the strength of the great Dalian Empire. The emperor, shrewd and ever watchful, pressed her on her motives. Shi Qingluo did not retreat behind sycophancy, but instead spoke with a refreshing, dangerous honesty that struck a chord with the weary ruler. He masterfully danced around the topic of the third prince's consort, refusing to play the victim directly. By elevating the emperor's wisdom and dedication, she ensured the monarch would seek his own vengeance on her behalf. The deal was struck. With the emperor's silent promise of justice, Shi Qingluo exited the palace, knowing that the gears of royal punishment were now turning against those who had dared to slight her. The iron-making recipe was quickly passed to the Ministry of Works. The minister, desperate for funding and breakthroughs, realized that this document was not just a technical guide, but a key to national power. Returning to the residence, Shi Qingluo found counsel with Mr. Hu. He praised her brilliance in keeping her hands clean, confirming that the emperor would now take personal interest in the downfall of his own daughter-in-law. The reunion between Shi Qingluo and Xiao Hanzheng was filled with shared pride. Together, they navigated the treacherous currents of the capital, fueled by the knowledge that their allies were already laying the trap. Outside the palace walls, the social storm gathered. Zai Rui and other influential friends began to broadcast the scandals of the third prince's consort, turning the tide of public opinion against the noble house. The morning court was heavy with expectation. As the charges were brought against the third prince's consort, the air grew thick with the looming finality of the emperor's impending judgment. The emperor's rage was swift and absolute. He stripped the consort of her status, demoting her to a mere concubine, while publicly rebuking the third prince for his blind infatuation with a woman who had become a burden to the crown. The court was sent into an uproar. This was a clear message to all. Shi Qingluo was not to be trifled with, and those who stood in her way, no matter their noble blood, would face the emperor's wrath. The third prince left the hall in a stupor, his political ambitions crippled. He realized that the woman he had shielded had brought nothing but ruin upon his reputation and his standing with the throne. Upon returning home, the situation descended into farce. His consort, now a concubine in everything but name, was being forced to learn etiquette, her arrogance crumbling as the reality of her new status set in. The charade was over. When she demanded he fight for her status, the third prince simply walked away, leaving the disgraced woman to face the cold truth that her power had vanished in a single day. Broken by the demotion, the former consort spiraled into a pit of despair, quickly replaced by a dark, burning desire for revenge against Shi Qingluo, whom she blamed for every ounce of her suffering. Xiao Hanzheng revealed the true depth of his reach, providing Shi Qingluo with inside details from the third prince's own residence. His strategic mastery earned him her deepest respect and a playful moniker of her own eternal god. In the general's residence, Xiao Yuanqi sat in deep regret, realizing he had underestimated his estranged son. He was a man trapped by his own past decisions, unaware of the domestic turmoil brewing under his own roof. As Ji Chunru set out on a secret mission, she was blissfully unaware that the observant eyes of the Xiao family were tracking her every move, setting the stage for the next confrontation in the capital. Fueled by paranoia and the news of a potential rival, Ji Chunru decides to take matters into her own hands, marching toward the secluded courtyard where Xiao Yuanqi has been spending his time. Inside the courtyard, Tao Liu awaits her visitor with calculated grace, ready to play the victim as Ji Chunru arrives to confront the woman she believes is stealing her husband's attention. Just as Ji Chunru attempts to assert her dominance, the unexpected arrival of old Lady Xiao turns the tables, exposing the messy internal politics of the Xiao family to a judging public. With the public watching, old Lady Xiao masterfully escalates the conflict, using every ounce of her acting ability to frame Ji Chunru as a cruel and unfilial daughter-in-law. Recognizing the signal, Tao Liu performs a calculated sacrifice, crashing against the wall just as Xiao Yuanqi enters, cementing her image as a martyr in his eyes. The stage is set. Xiao Yuanqi stands paralyzed by the scene, his sympathy swaying toward Tao Liu while the reputation of his household crumbles under the weight of the day's events. The psychological warfare continues as old Lady Xiao plants seeds of doubt in Xiao Yuanqi's mind, cleverly steering him toward the conclusion that bringing Tao Liu home is the only honorable path. Caught between a mother who won't be silenced and a wife who has become a liability, Xiao Yuanqi begins to regret his choices, realizing that his desire for control has only invited more chaos. Succumbing to the pressure of the moment, Xiao Yuanqi makes the fateful decision to take Tao Liu into his home, a choice that promises to ignite a new fire in his residence. The narrative of the Xiao family's internal betrayals leaks into the streets, as old Lady Xiao ensures that everyone hears the story of how Xiao Yuanqi abandoned his kin for his current wife. With the help of eldest grandson Xiao and carefully placed agitators, the public opinion turns sharply against Xiao Yuanqi and Ji Chunru, sealing their social disgrace. Overwhelmed by the public shaming and the weight of her own actions, Ji Chunru finally collapses, leaving Xiao Yuanqi to retreat in a desperate bid to escape the mocking eyes of the capital. From the shadows, Shi Qingluo and Xiao Hanzheng observe the success of their plan, satisfied that the public opinion machine has effectively done their work for them. Back within the walls of the general's residence, the fallout continues as Xiao Yuanqi and Ji Chunru clash over the consequences of her impulsive behavior. In the guest quarters, Tao Liu expertly manipulates Xiao Yuanqi's perception, acting as the gentle, understanding victim while effectively driving a deeper wedge between him and Ji Chunru. The trap is set. Tao Liu offers to leave to spare Xiao Yuanqi further trouble, a move that only solidifies his determination to keep her by his side as an innocent, unjustly treated woman. Tao Liu carefully suppressed her old habits, using every ounce of her training to appear as an innocent, virtuous woman from a good family. She acted with calculated hesitation, making Xiao Yuanqi believe her fragility was born from a place of genuine concern rather than deception. Captivated by her performance, Xiao Yuanqi found his resolve wavering. He felt a deep sense of protectiveness for the woman who seemed to care only for his happiness, even at the cost of her own reputation. Meanwhile, the news of the encounter reached the ears of Ji Chunru. Consumed by bitter jealousy and rage, she saw through the ruse and lashed out, her previous facade of gentleness crumbling beneath the weight of her fury. Intent on silencing the discord, Xiao Yuanqi manipulated the situation by arranging for Ji Chunyi to be sent to the northern border. He offered his wife a compromise, hoping to soothe her temper while steering the course of his own secret ambitions. The weight of public scrutiny pressed down on Xiao Yuanqi as his peers whispered about his broken family ties. The emperor's open disdain added to his humiliation, forcing him to consider desperate measures to regain favor. Doubt began to creep into Xiao Yuanqi's mind as friends questioned his judgment and loyalty to his own blood. The realization that his current wife's reputation was poisoning his own career stung him deeply. Sensing the shifting winds, old lady Xiao took control of the situation. She pressured her son to formalize his relationship with Tao Liu, realizing that securing Tao Liu's place in the household was essential for their long-term survival. With a mix of threats and persuasion, old lady Xiao forced Tao Liu to accept her new role. Xiao Yuanqi, caught between his mother's machinations and the shifting loyalties of his home, felt the walls of his own closing in. The mask of the virtuous wife slipped when old lady Xiao confronted Ji Chunru about her deceitful use of makeup. The sight of the powder staining the old woman's fingers shattered Xiao Yuanqi's remaining illusions about his wife's illness. Armed with schemes whispered by Shi Qingluo, old lady Xiao delivered a chilling warning. She made it clear that any harm coming to them on the road would lead to a swift and brutal public reckoning, leaving Ji Chunru trapped in her own malice. Under his mother's iron grip, Xiao Yuanqi was led away, leaving Ji Chunru alone in her room. She clutched at the empty space where her husband had stood, desperate for him to return and soothe her wounded pride. As the hours ticked past midnight, the truth finally arrived like a dagger. When the servant delivered the news that Xiao Yuanqi had remained in the other courtyard, the shock broke Ji Chunru, leaving her gasping for air as blood stained her lips. Safe in their sanctuary, Shi Qingluo and Xiao Hanzheng dissected the chaos unfolding at the general's residence with detached amusement. They saw the scumbag father for exactly what he was, a man of weak resolve and hypocritical loyalties. While the capital simmered with intrigue, the couple enjoyed a peaceful afternoon of shopping. Xiao Hanzheng gladly played the role of the devoted husband, ensuring his wife's happiness while they waited for the coming storm. Across the street, Xiao Yuanqi watched his son from a distance, feeling a strange mixture of resentment and begrudging respect. Next to him, Liang Hengxiao plotted to bridge the gap, hoping to harvest the power that the young couple now wielded. As he prepared to face the son he had cast aside, Xiao Yuanqi was haunted by the memories of his own foolishness. He realized too late that the path he chose had led to his current isolation, and he wondered if any reconciliation was truly possible. Driven to madness by isolation and the influence of a potent incense, Fu Wenzheng let down her guard. She poured out her venomous disdain for the third prince, exposing her deepest, darkest resentments to her seemingly loyal maid. Standing just outside, the third prince heard every cruel word, every shattering truth about the past he had cherished. The revelation that the kindness he believed he received was merely a case of mistaken identity, and vanity crushed his soul. The illusion of a faded love dissolved entirely. Fu Wenzheng mocked the prince's status and his worth, unaware that the man she had married for political utility was now bearing witness to her cold-hearted, calculated contempt. Inside the walls of the third prince's residence, Fu Wenzheng ruthlessly threatens her terrified maids, unaware that her husband is listening in the shadows. Haunted by past betrayals and the revelation that Liang Hengxiao had been deceived about the origin of his childhood comfort, the facade of their marriage begins to shatter. The discovery of Fu Wenzheng's cold-blooded schemes hits Liang Hengxiao like a physical blow. Realizing his affection was built upon a lie, his heart turns cold, stripping away the pretenses that once defined their union. With the veil lifted, Liang Hengxiao confronts Fu Wenzheng about her treachery. No longer the infatuated suitor, he realizes that his own family and the woman he thought he loved have been orchestrating his downfall all along. The illusion of a happy marriage is discarded as Liang Hengxiao walks away from Fu Wenzheng, leaving her behind in a fit of narcissistic rage. He no longer cares for the approval of a woman who never truly loved him. In a decisive turn of events, Liang Hengxiao approaches his father, the emperor, with hard evidence of the Fu family's treasonous machinations. Shedding his ambitions for the throne, he chooses a new path of service to the state. Surprised by his son's sudden honesty, the emperor entrusts Liang Hengxiao with the governance of the northern border. It is a promotion that stuns the court and catches Xiao Hanzheng off guard, shifting the tides of power in the capital. The news of the third prince's shift in fortune spreads, leaving Shi Qingluo and Xiao Hanzheng satisfied with their indirect triumph. But peace is fleeting as they prepare for an unwanted guest. The arrival of Xiao Yuanqi brings a chill to the household. Shi Qingluo takes the lead, greeting the man with sharp sarcasm, asserting her dominance and protecting Xiao Hanzheng from his father's manipulative reach. Unnerved by the couple's unity and Shi Qingluo's sharp tongue, Xiao Yuanqi finds himself struggling to maintain his composure. The power dynamic has shifted, and the scumbag father is no longer the authority figure he once was. While Xiao Yuanqi grapples with his son's defiance, an audience of curious onlookers led by Zai Rui watches from the shadows, eager to witness Shi Qingluo's verbal dismantling of the general. Shi Qingluo leaves no stone unturned, dissecting Xiao Yuanqi's history of betrayal and blindness. Each word lands like a strike, stripping away his veneer of respectability. Cornered by his own previous actions and the unyielding confidence of his former daughter-in-law, Xiao Yuanqi finds himself unable to strike back. He is trapped in a web of his own making, outmatched by the very people he once discarded. The final confrontation reaches a breaking point. Xiao Hanzheng stands as a silent wall of support, confirming that he allows Shi Qingluo to act because her words ring with the truth of his own resentment. Every attempt by Xiao Yuanqi to reclaim his role as a father is thwarted by Shi Qingluo's sharp reminders of his past hypocrisy. He is powerless to silence her, and his reputation crumbles further under the weight of his own hubris. Beaten and disgraced, Xiao Yuanqi exits, having failed to intimidate his son or silence his daughter-in-law. The cycle of abuse is finally broken, leaving Shi Qingluo and Xiao Hanzheng standing tall in their own domain. Inside the residence, the air crackled with the sharp, acidic barbs of Shi Qingluo, who ruthlessly dismantled the pride of Xiao Yuanqi. She didn't just reject his demand for reconciliation. She twisted the blade, taunting him about his barren mistress, and the fact that his own disowned children might one day call another man father. Pushed to the brink of a breakdown, Xiao Yuanqi attempted to exert his authority, demanding that Xiao Hanzheng use his skills as a doctor to treat his current mistress. The audacity of the request was met with a freezing refusal, leaving the general reeling from the realization that he had completely lost control over his own kin. Sensing that the moment had arrived, Shi Qingluo transitioned from a sharp-tongued adversary to a damsel in distress. She signaled to the eavesdropping Zai Rui and his companions, preparing to weaponize public opinion against the powerful man who had dared to threaten her. With theatrical precision, Shi Qingluo spun a tale of woe for the gathering crowd. Aided by the indignant shouts of Zai Rui and Zai Rong, she successfully painted Zhao Yuanqi as a heartless, power-abusing tyrant, leaving the general standing in the street, choking on his own fury as his reputation crumbled. Seeing his wife's success, Xiao Hanzheng stepped out to play his part in the drama. With a performance worthy of a master actor, he draped himself in feigned guilt, declaring that he would rather abandon his imperial examination ambitions than succumb to his father's threats and divorce his beloved wife. The onlookers were whipped into a frenzy of righteous indignation by Liang Hengxiao and Zai Rui. The young nobles, usually the ones being accused of bullying, now postured as defenders of the weak, ensuring that the public sentiment turned permanently against the general. Defeated and humiliated, Xiao Yuanqi chose the coward's path, retreating through a side door to avoid further exposure. He realized too late that he had been outmaneuvered by a pair of shameless, black-hearted youths who had effectively turned the entire capital against him. The trap was set, and the game had been played perfectly. With their reputations as victims cemented and the general's image in tatters, Shi Qingluo and Xiao Hanzheng began their preparations to leave the capital, confident that they had left a permanent scar on their enemy's legacy. Back in the safety of their residence, the mood was celebratory. Zai Rui and Liang Hengxiao openly praised Shi Qingluo for her tactical brilliance, admitting that they had never before understood the power of manipulating the truth rather than using blunt force. As plans for the journey home to Nanxi County solidified, Zai Rong expressed her deep reluctance to part ways. They spent their final hours discussing future ventures, including the potential for new cosmetic formulas that would keep their business bond alive even across the distance. Inside the walls of the Forbidden City, the report reached the Emperor's desk. To his and the Empress Dowager's surprise and amusement, the narrative of Shi Qingluo's clash with the general provided a moment of genuine levity, painting the young woman as a force of nature. The Empress Dowager, having long suffered the heartlessness of men in power, felt a surge of sympathy for Shi Qingluo. She declared the girl a wonderful soul, resolving that when the opportunity arose, she would see for herself the woman who had dared to bring the arrogant general to his knees. Back in the general's residence, the atmosphere was thick with resentment. Xiao Yuanqi, still reeling from his public humiliation, was greeted by Ji Chunru, who showed no concern for his well-being, instead immediately pressing him to secure an imperial physician for her brother's upcoming exile. The tension exploded when Liu Ru, the concubine, entered the room. Ji Chunru's vanity and jealousy flared, leading her to berate the woman for her tone and status. However, Xiao Yuanqi surprisingly stepped in to defend the concubine, further widening the rift between him and his wife. The shift was clear. Xiao Yuanqi, weary of his wife's constant demands and sharp temper, found a refreshing, submissive softness in Liu Ru. He ignored his wife's earlier request, choosing to indulge in the company of the woman who didn't challenge his fragile ego. Driven to the point of hysteria, Ji Chunru was comforted not by her husband, but by her sister, who urged her to play a more calculating game. The advice was simple: keep the concubine underfoot, charm the general, and secure the family's future through their ties to the second prince. While his wife seethed in isolation, Xiao Yuanqi enjoyed the quiet care of Liu Ru. As the servant sent by Ji Chunru arrived to summon him, he coldly dismissed the request, preferring the comfort of his study to the toxic environment of his main household. The following day, the bitter departure for the northern border took place. Ji Chunru watched as her brother left, feeling the sting of Xiao Yuanqi's manipulation. He had promised to help her family but framed it as a service to his mother to avoid suspicion, leaving her questioning his true loyalty. As the carriages for the exiled family rolled toward the border, Xiao Hanzheng and Shi Qingluo also took their leave. They departed the capital with the quiet satisfaction of victors, leaving behind a household destined to devour itself in jealousy and spite. After a half-month journey from the capital, the trio returns to the tranquility of Xiaxi village. Mr. Hu, enchanted by the humble yet warm surroundings, chooses to stay in the village instead of returning to the city. Comedic homecoming ensues as the house goose, Dummy, greets Shi Qingluo with a growing harem of female geese. The sight of the proud goose guarding his new family leaves everyone amused at the bird's unexpected romantic streak. While Xiao Hanzheng sees to Mr. Hu, Shi Qingluo consults Mother Xiao about recent events. She learns that the villagers, grateful for the shared prosperity of the cement workshop, stood up to protect the family from the hostile Wu family in their absence. The next day, Bai Zhu visits with news of the upcoming imperial examination. Expressing a desire to follow Shi Qingluo and her husband to the capital, he confirms that the small county of Nanxi is no longer enough to contain their growing ambitions. The mood turns cold as Bai Zhu reveals the full extent of the Wu family's depravity. They had planned to ruin Mother Xiao's reputation by framing her with a sordid, false affair, hoping to force her into disgrace. Shocking revelations continue as Bai Zhu exposes the Wu family's involvement in human trafficking and money laundering under the cover of the prefecture's corruption. Seeking justice for a friend's lost child, Bai Zhu hands over the hard-earned evidence he gathered. Armed with the damning proof, Xiao Hanzheng vows to dismantle the Wu family's influence. The viciousness of their enemies has accelerated his plans, ensuring the reckoning comes long before he even steps foot into the imperial examination hall. In the quiet of their home, Shi Qingluo and Xiao Hanzheng reaffirm their bond and shared goal of protecting their family. They divide their tasks, with Shi Qingluo heading to the Shi residence to gather information while Xiao Hanzheng prepares to meet the magistrate. At the Shi household, Shi Qingluo confronts the family, uncovering how the Wu family has been manipulating fourth son Shi into a web of gambling debt and excess. She masterfully navigates their greed to turn the situation in her favor. A quiet breakthrough occurs when an overlooked relative reveals a key detail overheard from the Wu family. The malicious scheme involving an old widower was a direct plot by Ji Chunru. This confirms the reach of their enemies far beyond the county borders. With the strategy finalized, Shi Qingluo instructs old lady Shi to have fourth son Shi feign poisoning. This bold gambit will force the authorities to search the Wu mansion, providing the perfect cover to expose their hidden ledgers and crimes. The Shi family agrees to the risky scheme, driven by the lure of the Wu family's riches. They resolve to sacrifice the comfort of fourth son Shi to secure the evidence needed to topple their oppressors once and for all. Recognizing the bravery of her overlooked younger sister, Shi Qingluo offers her a position in the upcoming wool workshop. This act of kindness secures a loyal ally and provides the girl with a future beyond the control of her parents. Back at home, Xiao Hanzheng confirms that the magistrate is ready to move against the Wu family. They resolve to strike back at Ji Chunru and Xiao Yuanxi, turning their own malicious schemes against them. The final part of their plan involves tempering Mother Xiao. They realize that for their future in the capital to be secure, she must lose her naivety and understand the darkness they are facing. In the intimacy of the evening, Shi Qingluo carefully reveals the full extent of the threats against the family. She breaks the cycle of protecting Mother Xiao from the truth, arming her with the knowledge required to survive the upcoming struggle. Instead of despair, Mother Xiao finds a cold, sharp resolve. She realizes that her previous gentleness nearly allowed their enemies to destroy her children, and she pledges to learn martial arts and stand as a defender of their home. Moving forward, Shi Qingluo empowers Mother Xiao to lead the workshops, teaching her to identify capable managers and protect the family's assets. The transformation from a sheltered mother to a savvy, protective matriarch begins in earnest. The night concludes with Shi Qingluo speaking to Xiao Bailey, ensuring that even the youngest of the family is prepared for the harsh realities of their future. The entire family is now united, aware, and ready to face the dangers awaiting them in the capital.